Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning Five here on New Year's Eve, aka game day for the Buckeyes. I can't wait. What time is it? Game time. Like the great Chicago Bulls used to do before every game. Dan Rubin, good to see you, my friend.
Glad to be here.
All right, you're playing the role of J Book today. So what we're gonna do is J Book and I typically on Fridays, as the good people know, we'll do our predictions before Saturday's games. You and I are doing a rare game day morning five, so we're gonna give our final score predictions. By the way, you can read our roundtable on Bucknuts later today with thoughts from our entire staff about a variety of things, including our final score predictions. Let's give our final score predictions now. I'm gonna go 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna post mine, and Dan's gonna say his as I'm posting mine. All right, here we go. You ready, sir?
Yes.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
27-13.
You're playing the role of J Book perfectly. I have
nice.
28-13. I should probably say it's for the people that are not watching it, that are listening to the podcast, which we have a lot of people that just listen to the audio only. I have 28-13 Ohio State. Dan Rubin has 27-13 Ohio State. Basically, what we're telling you guys, it's going to be a very, very happy New Year.
Yeah. It's been a really weird experience, I would say, leading up to this game. Last year was uncharted waters as well, with the loss and then the playoff, which we'd never done, and that was glorious. And then I said this earlier in the week, as I'm trying to put the Indiana game in context. I don't think you got Ohio State's best punch. And the question is, do you agree with that? If you think the Indiana game was Ohio State's best punch, then I'm not sure they're going to win the title this year. If you think it was there were some extenuating circumstances, you're coming off the game, and we all know what was invested in that. The injuries that they were dealing with. Indiana's a very good team.
Heartline. Signing day with everything with Chris Henry Jr. and legend. It sounds like making excuses, but sometimes you can make excuses in life. I know it's like something nobody says. Like those were legitimate excuses because there was like one after another, Explanations.
Once you use the word excuse, people's brain just tune out. So
I know
semantically, we got to say explanations. I hear you though. And then I also think that game meant more to Kurt Cignetti than anything else in his life, especially after last year. He's been, his start has been epic. The one real speed bump was when Ohio State kind of embarrassed them. He took a lot of crap for kind of trying to keep it close. So I think that was their Waterloo game, and we were coming off ours. So I'm very confident in the team. The thing I'm most confident about is, actually, there's two things. One is fresh legs. They've just got fresh legs. Bo Jackson's going to look like he was shot out of a cannon.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremiah and Carnell and that stuff. And those are the obvious ones. But in the trenches, those guys who don't have to get hit for a few weeks, you feel a little stronger, get a little bit of that strength back. I feel good about that. And then I do believe Day is going to cut it loose. That's what worked against Tennessee. Keep in mind, when those shirtless volunteers were freezing their nips off, we went deep early and often, and it was, this is what we were waiting for.
Oregon, same deal.
The number one thing I would say I feel confident about is Matt Patricia versus Carson Beck.
Yes.
I just think an extended period of time, and then getting a chance to watch them play in that wind-affected game, I guess, I just feel like this defense, we can argue over the talent level and stuff like that, but if I had to say the biggest difference with this group of defensive players as opposed to the past is and I'm knocking on wood here, they don't bust. And by that I mean every team usually has, oh my God, the two corners guarded the wrong guy, or they seem to be on point so often. That's the way Ohio State used to give up big plays. They confuse you once and hit you deep. Now it seems like if you're going to beat them, you got to beat them. I do have a little bit of fear about the corners who can get grabby and have gotten hit on some big plays.
I've always talked up Jermaine Matthews, and I still believe in him, but he has given up more than his share of big plays this year. We were talking about this in the boarding house yesterday. We had our X's and O's expert, who's a good friend of mine. He just does it for fun, man. He's actually an architect, and then just does it for fun because he loves football, coaches youth football. His son plays football, and he was saying, he was going in depth about it. He was like, Jermaine Matthews has been beaten a lot this year. He said, but IGB has cut down on the penalties big time and is like blanket coverage. Sometimes they're not even throwing IGB's way. So I'm with you, though. Lorenzo Styles Jr. makes me a little nervous. I tend to think Jermaine Matthews is best in the slot. But I believe in Jermaine. They'll attack him. That's what Indiana attacked clearly. They were going away from IGB and downs. They were trying to attack Lorenzo Styles Jr. and Jermaine Matthews, and it worked. But now, to your point, Ohio State's had 3.5 weeks to work on this. They're hungry. They went into that Indiana game, kind of like not only limping in, but the hunger wasn't really there. They just seem very motivated. And I love that the chirping from the outside. I love it. Like, part of me, I start to get like mad, then I think, no, this is good. Like the narrative, there's so many out there. The narrative that Miami's offensive line clearly has the advantage over Ohio State's defensive line is one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen. And it's the great thing about sports. There's been all this chirping. We're about to find out who was right. And if you've been one of these people that have been chirping that Miami's offensive line is better than Ohio State's defensive line, you better hope I'm not right, because I'm not going to be quiet about it. I've kind of bit my tongue a lot, and sometimes I haven't this week, but I've read a lot of stuff. We're keeping receipts, my friends. You better hope I'm not right, because Ohio State's defensive line is going to get after. Now, does Miami have a good offensive line? Yes, they do. Ohio State's defensive line will get after them, especially when you have a non-mobile quarterback. I can't wait. I love that narrative is out there, because if I know about it and it ticks me off a little bit, Matt Patricia knows about it. His players know about it. So let's go. Let's see what happens. Silver bullets are going to be firing on all cylinders tonight. Let's go.
I think if you actually went on the street and asked, speaking of the defensive lines, which, by the way, they say theirs is just definitely better. If you were to ask on the street trivia, entering the playoffs, who had the most, or rank the 4 defensive ends that are starting in this game, 2 of ours, 2 of theirs, rank them in sacks, I don't think many people would get that accurately. If you're going to do it accurately, it will be Curry, Mesidor, Bain, Jackson. I think everyone thinks Rubin Bain had 100 sacks this year. He had 7.5. Caden Curry had 11. Mesidor had 8.5. So
they lost to Louisville. Their fans are talking about in media, Ohio State, they lost to Indiana. They lost to Indiana by 3 points in Indianapolis. They didn't lose to freaking Louisville at home. People gloss over that. Can you imagine if Ohio State had lost to a team like Louisville at Ohio Stadium this year? Listen, man, this is why we have the predictions. Do we think it's going to be like 59-0? No. Yeah. Do we think the Buckeyes are going to have to win on a last-second field goal? No. There's middle ground, and Dan and I like them to win pretty comfortably. I think there's going to be some nervous moments, but hopefully not. Hopefully there's no nervous moments. It's going to be like Tennessee and Oregon last year, where it's just like blow the doors off of them. But I think they're going to win comfortably, and so do you. And the narrative out there just cracks me up. And I don't want to take it too far. Nobody is saying, Ohio State doesn't even belong on the same field with Miami. I haven't heard anybody actually say that. It's like little things I hear, like Miami's offensive line has the clear advantage over Ohio State's defensive line. I'm like, okay. And you can have your opinions. If you said like Miami, I think Miami's offensive line is a little bit better than Ohio State's defensive line. Okay. It's a reasonable opinion. I would totally disagree with it. But when you just go like full nuclear, like Miami's offensive line has the clear advantage over Ohio State's defensive line, it's like you're branding yourself as somebody who has not watched either of these teams much this year.
You can't be one-dimensional against Ohio State. I know that. So the idea that Mark Fletcher is going to line up and run it right at them, anything's possible. That would surprise me. Here's what I really want to happen. So to me, the most poisonous thing in sports is what I call, and it's been cliched by a lot of people, and every team has heard this from their coaches at one point in time, but it's the here we go again mentality, meaning you're a bad team, you get psyched up for the game, you talk about all this great stuff you can do, you get off to a good start, something bad happens, and everyone's like, here we go again. And right into the – now, that can also work in your favor. If they come out in this game and go deep early, and everyone's like, it's the playoffs, Miami's going to be like, oh, my God, this is what Ohio State about. We're
Exactly.
getting Tennessee, Ohio State. Oh, we're getting Oregon, Ohio State. And then they will, the here we go again mentality will flip to them. So,
and we used to like play a lot of Mike Tyson clips on the old Front Row radio, the hilarious ones. But he has one that's not, I mean, it's just a great quote. It's maybe his most famous quote is like, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Miami's got a plan. We'll see how they react when they get punched in the mouth, because they are going to get punched in the mouth. Now, I'm sure, going to punch Ohio State in the mouth. But I think Ohio State's going to punch them a lot harder and a lot more times in the mouth. So I'm fired up, man. I just see a clear advantage. Ohio State's defense. Everybody's talking about Miami's defense, and it's a very good defense. It's not as good as Ohio State's defense. Ohio State's defense is number one by a mile in every metric you can think of. And Matt Patricia's now, I mean, he's just an excellent defensive coordinator. There's just no way around it. Yeah, man, I can't wait. I cannot wait for this game. I wish it wasn't at 7:30. I wish it was like more in the middle of the day, but we'll get there. I might have to take a nap, but we'll get there.
You want to send him to Bolivian?
There was some that we had to bleep out a lot of words, if you remember, when he was going off about somebody in the crowd.
Oh, yeah.
At a press conference, and he was just like, yeah, I'm not even going to get into it. Yeah. It was like somebody, a fan or somebody who said
there's something. Cannibalism involved in that.
There was other very, very, very lewd comments. Yeah. Mike Tyson's turned his like, I don't know specifically, but like, he's now like considered like just like this jovial guy, you know, like The Hangover and all that stuff. Okay.
Before the end of the show, I'll find it. I'm going to show you guys a photo that you're going to enjoy. Go ahead.
Oh man. All right. Keys to victory. We've already laid out a few of them. Now let's do some things that maybe we're concerned about. Like, I think it's reasonable to be very concerned about Ohio State's short yardage and red zone offense, right? Because this is not just a this year problem. It's been kind of a staple of the Ryan Day era. And this is not to criticize Ryan Day, although he needs to get this cleaned up, because overall his offenses have been very productive. That's the bottom line, right? You're not going to be perfect in everything. You're not going to be elite in everything. Overall, I think we're very happy with what Ryan Day's done with this offense, right? And last year was the aberration, or the exception to the rule, I should say. Ohio State was a good short yardage team. They were very effective in the red zone. And there's a lot of reasons why. The offensive line, the best running back tandem we've seen at Ohio State since, unless you're old enough to remember Archie and Pete, maybe some even before that, best of my lifetime. And then Will Howard was an actual threat at the quarterback position, which really, really helps your short yardage and red zone. He didn't have a ton of rushing yards, but he picked up a lot of first downs on 3rd and 4th down. He scored like 7, maybe 10 rushing touchdowns. I'd have to go back and look at it. So that was a big reason last year was the exception to the rule. I also think Chip Kelly was pretty good in those situations. So that is a concern. That is a concern. But when I start to get concerned about that, I think, how's Miami going to move the ball in Ohio State's defense? But just looking at Ohio State's offense, and Julian Sand went from like just looked like he was going to win the Heisman to falling off a little bit toward the end of the year. He's got to process things a little faster and a little better, not miss wide open receivers that are down the field. But yeah, those are a few of the concerns I have, Dan.
Look, we watched, I mean, you know the statistics better than me. I think they only gave up, 5 or 6 sacks for the entire season. And then he was under duress consistently against Indiana. That's why when we started this whole thing out, it's almost rudimentary or overly basic to say this, but I do think Sayan is one of those guys now where it's like, if you protect him, you're going to lose. The other team, I mean. If he's allowed to actually hit his back foot, get to his 2nd and 3rd reads, Ohio State's going to win. He's proven accuracy-wise that he's just, I mean, on another level. He's not the biggest dude ever to walk the earth. He's not the best tush pusher ever to walk the earth. Let's be honest. Now, those were a very few plays. I think he slipped on one of them. I feel very confident they'll get a 4th and 1 in this game at some point with Julian Sand sneaking it. He's not a 135-pound JV kid that got called up to varsity. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He's an athlete. So that I'm not worried about. Ohio's, like I've said this many, many times, Dave, their talent level is such that they need to be the team that just plays the cleanest possible game, right? when Ohio State plays poorly, it's an interception, it's a fumble, it's something when we get off the script. Keep it on script. Make it a talent game. I mean, Miami is a talented team. There is no more talented team than Ohio State. I don't know whether you want to use Vegas with the spreads, you want to use the NFL with how they evaluate some unbiased. We have the most talented team. So that sometimes lends people to playing conservative. You know what I'm saying? It's like, look, you shorten the game, you give the other team fewer plays. That lends to the more talented team, having an advantage. I do not think it's a big deal that Day is calling plays. That is a national narrative. I think anyone who follows the team knows. Even last year, he was as involved as if he had to take over in the playoffs last year, I wouldn't have been bummed out. Ryan Day got to the point he is at today. The number one reason that he is at the crown jewel or one of the 3 or 4 crown jewel jobs in college football is because of his ability to call plays. So the idea that that's going to be the thing we have to go ask him to do, we're going to need your brain surgeon to perform brain surgery. Okay. So that doesn't bother me. That's national narrative BS.
It's so funny how people don't know what they're talking about, but they're so confident they are. Like people saying things like, oh, yeah, he hasn't called plays all year. It's like Ryan Day hasn't called plays all year. It's like, no, everybody I know that's actually in the know has told me, yeah, in big games, big moments, he's been calling plays all year. Was Brian Hartline heavily involved? Yeah. Was Ryan Day still calling most of the plays? Yeah. Both things are true. So it's just so funny. I've read stories. Ryan Day is going to be calling plays for the first time since 2023. Ryan Day is going to be calling plays for the first time since the Indiana game. There we go. Rubin and Mike Tyson. I love
Iron Mike. Here's the funny thing about this. This was taken late at night in a bar in D.C. after my nephew's rehearsal dinner. And I sent it to my friend. I'm like, dude, I didn't even remember this. I put my hand on his head. And my friend wrote back, with pressure. Anyway. So
yeah, that's dangerous. That was like before Tom Segura. It's Tom Segura used to be really, really, really funny. His first 2 specials were unbelievably good, completely normal, and mostly stories were the 2 specials. But he was a portly man, and he would always talk about that, how he was overweight and everything. And he's gotten real skinny now, and he's not as funny. I see this all the time, I see when a guy loses like a ton of weight, he's not going to be as funny.
Or what?
Segura had a hilarious joke. What's that?
Why did Chevy Chase stop being funny?
Because he got insane and started saying racist things.
That was more a symptom. He got sober.
Okay, I got you. But yeah, I see it all the time. Like Jonah Hill, not that Jonah Hill was a stand-up comic. Drew Carey, all these guys that lose like a ton of weight, they just aren't as funny anymore. Anyway, Segura did have a really good. He met Mike Tyson on a plane. This really happened, and then Mike ended up going to. They met for the first time. Then Mike ended up going to his show. They're on a flight to Pittsburgh, and Mike's like, "Where's your show at?" And Tom Segura's like, "It's at the Improv in Pittsburgh." He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna come see your show." And Tom's like, "What?" And he's like, then a few minutes later, he's like, "Where's your show at?" He's like, "Still the Pittsburgh Improv." He's like, "Well, where's that at?" He's like, "I don't know. Google it." And then it hits him. Is like, I just told Mike Tyson to Google it. Like, you find it, bleep face.
Yeah.
Like he didn't actually. It was just funny, and they actually became like friends. But Tom Segura's new special not good. Dave Chappelle's new special good, and he spends about 15 minutes talking about Yellow Springs at the beginning.
He does, which is hilarious.
So funny. He never mentions Yellow Springs by name, but we know what he's talking about. It is so funny. I'm not going to give any more spoilers. Watch Dave Chappelle's new special on Netflix. It's fantastic. All right. Where do we want to go from here? Yeah, I didn't want to make this too long of a show. I got too much to do, like take a nap. No. I will be with you guys on the postgame show, What We Learned Live. So we'll be with you late night as well. We're getting the morning started with the morning 5. We'll get the evening capped with the post-game show, What We Learned Live. So I'll be with you guys for that. Dan, any parting thoughts before we get out of here?
I know people don't like to talk about recruiting on game day, but the commitment Ohio State got earlier this week from DJ Jacobs, a defensive end out of Georgia from Steel Chambers High. Go watch the video. If you got some time to kill today, go spend 5 or 6 minutes doing that. And I want to address this too. Things have changed in recruiting. So we talk about the professionalization of college football and how now it's an NFL game because they're paying the players and stuff. That's actually pretty true. So we are in a salary cap sport now. theoretically. Now, there's really no technically a cap, but for those who, when he made the commitment, any out of state high profile commitment now, we have 30 posts immediately being like, not going to stick. Tell me when he sticks.
Right.
When's he going to get here? Keep in mind, this is not the Torrance Gibson era where you sign a mercurial dude and you just have to like convince him to come behind it. There's finances involved in this. The discussions and contracts. I'm not saying there's signatures and stuff, but there's some binding agreements in there. You have am I saying DJ Jacobs is definitely going to be a Buckeye? No, but the chances that he is going to be are very, very high. We've been through this before with these long-term recruitments of guys that were high profile. For the most part, it does turn out good. Now,
Jeremiah Smith, for any Miami fans that are watching, that one turned out pretty well for Ohio State. Going down to Miami and getting the best wide receiver of his generation. Bam, thank you for that one.
I mean, the Chris Henry one was oogie down the stretch, but that's because Brian Hartline left. He'd been committed since he was 15 years old. This is not, and that was in the old system. If I had to bet on it, I would bet that DJ Jacobs would end up becoming a Buckeye. And for this reason, when you talk in the salary cap, you can do this right now. Go to Spot Track and go hit unrestricted free agents for the NFL for the season for the next year. You can search on their expected value. So you can see how much everybody costs. It's kind of slotted, right? So at Ohio State, if you have an open spot that you're going to pay big money for, someone in the United States is taking that spot. That's a fact, okay? There's not going to be an open spot at Ohio State to play safety for big money. That's not how it works in pro sports, college sports. So we may not get the second safety anymore, okay? Trey McNutt may leave, but we're getting Devin Sanchez.
We might not get offered, but we're getting Sanchez, to your point.
We're going to get the first guy.
Right. We get, and if you wanted to pick between Devin Sanchez and offered, you would take Devin Sanchez eight times a week.
But that's a separate issue.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is their first guy
It's to your point,
that's a slot.
Yeah, it's to your point. They got the number one. Yeah,
he's now slotted in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Jameer Brown is slotted into 27 as the top receiver. So not only do you have to get something has to go on with your team, a coach leave, a bad season. We don't have bad seasons. Something else has to happen. There has to be a financial interruption of some sort. And that team also, by the way, has to keep that powder dry. So you're talking about the number one slot. Another team's going to come get them. They're going to have X million in reserve and convince them to leave. That's not just, Ohio State had a bad season and your girlfriend decided to go to Purdue, so you're going to a different school. This is a much more aggressive financial, as we know this, see Legend Bay, many more people involved situation. So it's like the Blaine Bradford argument about safety. He's from Baton Rouge. Once he was slotted in there, he's got to go to another one of those slots, meaning Alabama or Oregon or blank for big money. That spot may not even exist. So I know that was a long, contrived version. If you look at the guys Ohio State has doubled down on, here's the deal. You have to be good enough to reasonably be expected to come in and play day one. So put that litmus test out there. Jeremiah Smith, okay. Devin Sanchez, okay. Bo didn't even think, but Bo Jackson didn't play against Texas, people. Nobody thought he was going to be the main guy.
Right. How crazy is that when you think about it?
Different.
How crazy is that? I think San had I used to be able to recite his exact stats that game because he had 3 or 4 drops. I think he only threw the ball 20 times, if that. I think he was I think he was 13 of 20, but he should have been 17 of 20 because there was JJ had 2 drops. Claire had dropped the first pass of the season on 4th down, no less. I was like, oh, that's not a good way to start.
By the way, hit him in the chest.
Ennis had to drop that game too. So even in Sayan's first game, it's 13 of 20. It's maybe not as accurate as we thought. No, he really, by the advanced metrics was 17 of 20.
Also, people discuss the Texas game. I actually heard someone call it a loss accidentally. That's how bad the narrative has gone. Does anyone remember that game? It was the reason they didn't get crazy on offense is Arch Manning was having an out-of-body experience. He was setting football back eons. That game was not even close until it was 14-0. They didn't even threaten them till the end. So the idea also that dueling narratives, you have people say, "Oh, well, saying you're not a rookie or you're not a freshman after your 15th game," and then they're citing the first game as details. Like, wait a minute, which is he? Is he the one who was the rookie, or is he the one now? So, the narratives, Dave.
I love it. Yeah, and I'll send you guys out with this. Obviously, we talked about short yardage as a concern for the Buckeyes, red zone, true. And I still believe in this offensive line as a pass pro line. I think the Indiana game was a little bit of an aberration. You don't go through, and I get they didn't play like murderers row in the regular season, but they faced some decent D lines. And to give up 6 sacks the entire regular season tells me this is a good pass pro line. So I think, but it's a concern because Miami's defensive line is the best that they've faced this year. Indiana's got a really good D line. A little concerned now that Indiana's lost a second defensive lineman for the season.
Was Indiana an aberration, or was it who they are? That's really the question.
That's the thing. That's the great thing about sports. We're about to find out, and I tend to think Miami's going to, they'll at times pressure Sam, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near. Everybody's focused on, outsiders are focused on the Indiana game so much they just talk about it. Then they gloss over losing to Louisville at home, Miami, losing to SMU, not even getting to the championship game of an awful, terrible conference. If Virginia wins, if Virginia beats Duke, Miami's not even in this thing. They just wanted to get an ACC team in there. It'd be Notre Dame in there instead of Miami.
Here's a narrative, Dave.
For sure, if Virginia would have beat Duke.
Here's a narrative. If Ohio State's defense plays the way I expect them to tonight, that's going to be the narrative coming out of this, because people go, "Oh, they only give up 8.2 points per game. That's the same as the last." That was in Alabama, and they've put up the stat of the last 4 best defenses in points allowed. It goes over the last 25 years. That's going to be an easy narrative for everyone to hop on. Let's get to Carson Beck, man. I'll tell you what, if Carson Beck takes a hit on the first play of the game, like our guy from Indiana did, your Buckeyes are going to cover.
Yeah, I don't know if he'd come back from that like Mendoza did. But yeah. I still think Mendoza was milking that a little bit, acting like he got knocked. Because if you get knocked out, then the doctors are going to rule you can't go back in because it's an automatic concussion.
Don't get the COVID test.
He definitely took a big hit, don't get me wrong, but he acted like he was knocked out there for a second. It's like, dude, then they're going to keep you. And I think he realized, I better not do that. All right, we're going to close up shop here. I'll be with you guys after the game, what we learned live. Thanks to Dan Rubin. Thanks to all of you. Happy New Year, everybody, and go Bucks.